Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 159. The two powerhouses of international rugby meet in the World Cup semi-final on Saturday as England look to secure a place in the final. But the challenge doesn't come tougher than this. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Saturday, the 26th of October, 2019, World Cup semi-final. 7 years in the waiting, Dan. Are England ready for their next victory over the All Blacks?
Yes, they are completely ready for their next victory over the All Blacks. It will be one hell of a tough game because the All Blacks are awesome. But I think we're ready and I think we're more than capable.
Oh, mate, I literally can't wait. It's, people have asked on Twitter, are you not nervous? Of course you're nervous, yeah. But this is the battle of the two top teams. It's a shame this isn't the final.
Yes, it really is, isn't it?
Because this is the test. Whatever happens going forwards, this is the one that people want to see. It's there for the taking. This is an England team that have the capability, despite past records, to do a job and to go all the way. And I, for one, have faith, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, I really do. I know we're biased, I know all that, blah, blah, blah. But looking at, and it's something we're going to come on to a bit later on in the episode, but looking at both the teams, we're good enough to win. I mean, New Zealand are naturally favourites, but these are the top two teams in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's going to be one hell of a game. And bring it on. These are the days. These are the toughest days. The Thursday, Friday before. You know the team. You're just a bit like, nothing unlikely. Something's going to change. There might be an injury, but, they're not going to have any harsh training between now and then. And you just want it to kick off now.
Well, I'm going to be spending a lot of time, I think, hiding behind my hands. But hopefully also a lot of time leaping around in celebration as Manu boshes through and scores tries for fun and Farrell slots goals.
God, that would be good, wouldn't it? What would you prefer? Would you prefer an absolute classic game where we win with a last-minute kick, try, drop goal, whatever? Or would you prefer us to win sort of reasonably comfortably sort of throughout the match? We're always in control and win. Which scenario would you prefer?
Oh, I mean, obviously you want to win comfortably, but there would be something about putting it, it going down in history as an all-time great.
Yeah.
Just for England to really show their grit. What we don't want is, you don't want it to be a case of, not that I actually care because a win's a win, but you don't want afterwards for it to be a case of, people look back and go, yeah, but New Zealand did this and New Zealand were rubbish at that, and that's so unlike New Zealand. I want it to be both teams gave it everything and England came out on top, but ideally with a number of tries. To put them ahead. Not even necessarily tries, just a nice clear winning margin.
I couldn't give a.
I don't care, mate. A win.
Either way, as long as we win. Yeah,
exactly. Well, I want to talk about some of that in a minute, but just before we get into this proper, we've got some reviews, and just before we start on those, I think we may have been found out, Dan. The shroud giving the impression that we're a highly professional operation may have been lifted after I forgot to edit the last episode. So for those of you that got in early and downloaded the episode early, you may have caught wind of a little cock up where we had to redo a bit, and I left that in for your listening pleasure. So apologies for that. For those of you that downloaded it a little bit later on, you probably didn't hear it. But there you go. We're human, believe it or not.
You're an absolute disgrace.
Despite our professionalism and despite our our planning and organisation, as has been pointed out by a number of listeners, it all came tumbling down last week. But not the England team.
I'm so sorry, guys. Look what I've got to work with. I give my best week in, week out, but what can I do?
Well, I'm glad that you feel that way.
It's good that I've got your back on this one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm good like that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's move on to some reviews that we'll get right first time. So the first one's from Mark Davies. It's an email. He says, "Hi guys, just a brief email to say how much I've been enjoying listening to the England Rugby Pod. Love the positive vibes, banter and content. Absolutely 10 out of 10 rating for the show. As an Englishman living in Australia, your podcast has helped me keep my sanity while surrounded by Wallabies supporters, and the Rugby World Cup win over the Wallabies was simply awesome." And he has also attached a photo of him with his twin daughters in their England get-up, supporting the boys when they watched England beat Australia. So that is awesome. He says,
that is awesome.
Yeah, he says, "I've every belief, as you have, in this England side going all the way. Thanks for the podcast. Please consider continuing it after the Rugby World Cup."
Thank you very much. So, yeah, not much more to say there. Yeah, thank you.
Indeed. We've also then had an email from Sean Farrell, or Farrell, double R.
Stop
so
it.
It's Farrell. I think we've heard from Sean before, actually. He says, "Morning, gentlemen. The time has finally come. It seems for our boys to really show their pedigree and whether they can be considered the world's best. There is no greater challenge than the All Blacks, and I'm incredibly nervous as well as excited for Saturday. The All Blacks seem to be peaking, and England's defence will definitely be scrutinised. Both teams have been announced now, and one hopes that Scott Barrett does not neutralise the physicality of the kamikaze twins. I'm slightly disappointed that there was no room for Big Joe or Jack Noel. My biggest concern remains at 15, and one hopes Mr. Daly can cope with the barrage which will be heading his way. I don't think this will be a low-scoring match, and England will have to show the intent early and then squeeze the All Blacks with penalties. Hopefully Daly can nail a few long-range efforts. My heart says England, although the All Blacks are frightening with their backline somehow seeming that bit more dangerous than us. Biggest concern remains our ability to play catch-up rugby. My question to you is, when looking at both benches, do you think England could overcome a 10-point margin with 15 minutes to go?" He says, "I've been an avid listener of the pod and hope you continue with the unprepared banter. It's what rugby's about. As always, my five stars remain. Let's hope we have 23 stars playing in the final next weekend. Let's go, England."
Great. Thank you very much. And what a hell of a question. What do you reckon, Ackers? I'm going to put that on you first.
I think England need to be going into this game with the intention of making flipping that the other way around. Can they do it? I mean, of course, in theory, they can do it. 10 points is, 2 scores. But it's always a big ask, and against the All Blacks, it's even bigger. I'm going to have to say yes, they could do it, but I just don't want them to be in that situation, obviously.
I think, just putting on a sort of level of realism for a second, I think, yes, they could definitely do it. I think it would happen 2 times out of 10, even 1 out of 10. So let's make sure we're not found in that position. But that's a good question.
Indeed. And he references Daly as well at fullback, and that being his concern. And, I've obviously voiced this concern. You've been a bit more of a staunch supporter, but obviously, you also accepted that Daly didn't have his best game against Australia. However, he did have one of his best games, or one of his better games, against Argentina. So
yeah,
hopefully he's going to have an Argentina-type performance rather than an Australia-type performance. And I think you were right when you mentioned last weekend that his long-range boot could be crucial in this game.
I'm happy Daly's playing. He didn't have a great game, but like you say, against Argentina, he was great. Daly can be. So that's why, if we're saying 10 points down, 15 minutes to go, that the likes of the players who can change the game most people in our backs, actually, certainly our back three, are all capable of pulling something out of nothing. Tuilagi as well. Daly, I've just got a sneaky suspicion Daly's going to have a really good game.
Man of the match performance, a blinder.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm man of a match. I'm already backing Tom Curry to go back-to-back with man of the matches.
Interesting. All right, well, we'll come back to some of these questions because when we start going through the team, we'll be able to answer them slightly better. The next one is from George Ford, rather than George Ford, on Twitter. George Ford 12. He says...
what's the difference?
One has 1 O and one has 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's clever.
Yeah.
At George Ford 12. At England Rugby Pod. Review, 5 stars, love the banter. Is this podcast going to carry on after the World Cup? Be a shame for it to go. And is Dan related to Joe Pascali? Keep up the good work, guys.
Uncle Joe, yeah, me and Uncle Joe, we're good mates. Good mates.
It's not the first time that question has been posed, Dan.
I know, it's weird. I don't get it. I
take a
don't
look at
understand
yourself.
why. Yeah, I don't really get why.
Or a listen.
It's maybe because they feel a bit like from Goodfellas, they feel I'm a bit gangster. That must be it. That must be it.
I'm not sure that's the Joe Pascali they're talking about.
I think it is. I think it is.
Well, anyway, George, appreciate the... I'm sure that is actually the real George Ford, but in disguise.
Yeah, of
obviously.
Course. A very sly disguise as well.
Yeah, no one's getting that. I mean, it's almost clear as your conscience, isn't it? It's the old Smirnoff style. He's made it so obvious that everyone's like, well, it couldn't be, and that's how he gets away with it. It's clever, smart, thinking man.
Good luck on Saturday, George.
Exactly. But yeah, appreciate the 5 stars and for reaching out. So keep those coming. And then what have we got? Another. This actually, we could have had this one in the last episode, but I was distracted by the cock up. This is from Bob at 23. We've heard from him before, but he comes back to us today. It's coming home. He says 5 stars. Hey guys, I'm a long time listener and massive fan of your pod. I've recommended it to all my mates. You two are a great listen, and even more so as the World Cup comes on. Keep up the rose-tinted work. Shout out to the Pool Rugby Club.
Oh,
with a picture of a dolphin. Are they known as the Dolphins?
I don't know, but I assume that's Paul down near Bournemouth way. Yeah. So I would imagine that wouldn't surprise me.
It would make sense.
With their proximity to marine activities and marine life.
Indeed. But Bobbert, cheers for getting in touch again, and thanks for retaining those 5 stars. We really appreciate that. And guys, if you want to get in touch with us, whether it's to write us a review, whether it's to email us with some comments or questions, whatever you want, really. We're always looking to share stuff on the pod. So at England Rugby Pod on social media, englandrugbypod@gmail.com if you want to ping us over an email. And we want to continue this journey with you guys in tow. So keep those coming. Speaking of which, Dan, we've had over 100,000 unique downloads so far.
That's awesome. I'm really happy.
So we just cleared that benchmark, guys. Really appreciate that. Keep tuning in because it's been a bit of an eye opener, really. I mean, this whole thing was set up just really as a bit of fun. We didn't think much of it. We didn't think it would go anywhere, and I think we've both been really pleasantly surprised by the uptake, and we're really glad that you guys who are tuning in, are enjoying listening to our ramblings as much as we're enjoying giving them.
Yeah.
One final thing before we move on, I just wanted to draw attention to a tweet from @RugbyStig, which is part of the Rugby United family on Twitter, for a genius Twitter poll. I think you'll like this, Dan. He or she put out a Twitter poll saying, who will win the 2019 Rugby World Cup? England, New Zealand, South Africa, or other? Welsh fans literally imploded. I'll be honest. I'm quite surprised. I'm quite surprised at how many people thought that the tweet was serious.
Yeah.
Explaining to him that there were only 4 teams left in the World Cup, but the responses that he gave were genius. And if you want a good laugh, go find he or she. Yeah, find their profile on Twitter. Find that tweet and just go through the comments because it had me laughing out loud. It was good bants.
I like this person.
Indeed. I mean, I think he's actually Welsh, but that makes it even funnier.
That does make it funnier.
Right, let's move on, Dan, because we've got some serious stuff to talk about. And first up, of course, is the team. It was announced this morning. Early doors. What are your initial thoughts?
So initially, I'm happy that Vunipolas, Billy. I'm happy both Vunipolas are there. To be fair, I think
let's start by saying that the only real big thing here is that he's brought Ford back in.
So that is the big thing that he's brought Ford back in, and the other thing is Wilson for Ludlam. But I think this was pre-planned. I don't think this was a reaction to performances. I think this is the team that he believes will unlock the All Blacks. And I think the key reason Ford's back in is because Tuilagi at 13. I believe the only reason Tuilagi was at 12 against Australia was Karevi.
Yeah, true. And let's not forget the last time England beat New Zealand, albeit a little while ago, I'm going to come on to that, Tuilagi was at 13.
He was at 13. It was Barrett at 12 that day, from memory.
I mean, it was a fairly punchy midfield, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, Andy Good has said on Twitter, huge call by Eddie Jones to start Ford at 10 and shift Farrell back to 12, dropping Henry Slade for the semi-final. Farrell looked much more comfortable and dominant in the 10 shirt against Australia. Would you agree with that?
I thought Farrell had a good game.
Do we think that's more to do with the fact that he had a pretty poor game against Argentina, though, rather than, he looked more comfortable at 10?
It's so hard to say. I mean, Andy Good, in fairness, knows a thing or two about playing at 10, so it's hard to call. But
I think the Ford-Farrell partnership's looked pretty good generally.
Yeah, I think it has looked good. I think the reason it's looked good is because Ford has been on such cracking form.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because when it was announced against Australia that Farrell was moving to 10, the world seemed to erupt into sort of calls for Eddie's head because of this crazy decision that George Ford had been dropped. Then, of course, we win comfortably and people are liking it. Then he changes it back to what people wanted and everyone's going nuts, going, what are you doing? Farrell's better at 10. I think, like you, I think this is pre-planned. I think they always knew, if we make the semi-final, if it's against New Zealand, which, to be fair, it was always likely to be if we got that far, this is the game plan we're going to be gearing up for. And obviously they've been training for this game since they've known. And I think, like you say, I think it's about a game plan. I guess the only thing is that with George Ford, you have a very sort of structured kicking game, and he's very good at implementing it. But you've got a pretty threatening back three that you're kicking to. Is it the right plan to be pushing them? I mean, on the one hand, if he's kicking well and just continually pushing them back and England back in their defence, then you starve them of attacking ball, or not attacking ball because they've got the ball in hand, but you starve them of territory and possession, not possession, territory. And maybe that is one of the answers. Don't let them score by pinning them back.
You don't want to give Bowden Barrett a run. So, yeah, it's a good point. I mean, how much kicking? They will still play a kicking game because they play it very well.
Do you not think that that's the clear sign coming from having George Ford at 10, is that they're going to play, they're going to implement a strong kicking game?
I think they will implement a strong kicking game.
Because he's so good at it.
I think it's worked well for them. But there's also, I think Ford in attack is so dangerous. And I think another reason for him there is to release the likes of Tuilagi. I must admit that my biggest surprise, I thought on the bench, instead of having Slade Joseph, I thought, especially with Jack Noel injured, I thought Cockney-Seager might be on the bench.
Is Jack Noel still injured? Is that official?
Yeah, Jack Noel's not made. So I read something saying that he's been injured, which is why he's called out. I'm not saying he would have been there.
I think he'd have been on the bench, and I actually think he'd have been on the bench for Slade. I think although Slade had some moments, and you obviously were gave him a lot of credit, I just felt like he didn't. I just think he's lacked match time, and I know that Jack Noel has as well. But we've seen Jack Noel just create things from nothing, and he's just a workhorse. I think Henry Slade was a little bit weak in defence, and I think handling errors are going to be key because you just can't afford handling errors against the All Blacks. If opportunities present themselves and you don't take them, it's going to be costly. I think ultimately that's the key here, is the team that takes advantage of every opportunity is going to be the one that ends up winning. And I think Jonathan Joseph offers something more than Henry Slade off the bench, and I think had Noel been fit, I would have wanted to see him in there as the other replacement.
Well, would you prefer, but now Jack Noel's not fit, would you prefer Slade or Cockney-Seager on the bench?
I think I'd probably find room for someone else, maybe Cockney-Seager to... I mean, the thing is...
I think
maybe Big Joe. I did like seeing Joe and Manu together on the outside against Ireland, because it genuinely felt, for the first time in a long time, it genuinely felt like every time the ball got that far wide, there was an opportunity to score, and we haven't played that since.
Yeah.
Which I'm quite surprised by, that we haven't seen that since. So yeah, Cockney-Seager could have been a good shout there. I don't really get what the game plan is. You're not going to take Farrell off unless he's injured, probably. So even if you move Farrell to 10 and replace Ford at some point in the game, you're kind of already committing. Well, you're either taking Tuilagi off as well and just putting in a brand new centre partnership of Ford, Slade, Joseph.
No, I think you may see. Well, it may not happen, but if it comes to it, I think what you may see is Tuilagi move to 12 and perhaps a JJ come at 13.
But then what? So you just don't use Henry Slade off the bench? It seems like a waste of a bench spot.
Yeah, possibly.
Given that it's a 23-man game now.
It is a 23-man game, but it doesn't mean you have to use all 23 men.
You don't have to, but my point is that in theory you want to because it's about changing things up. So yeah, for me, Slade and Joseph together on the bench seems like a bit of a waste in a World Cup semi-final. I think having a Joe Cognasiga in there gives you the option to bring someone on that's going to offer something very different. And if you need to change things up, but I don't think that Joe Cognasiga has the best defence, and he's potentially a liability in defence, as good and strong as he is in attack. And that's almost definitely going to be key, particularly in the wide channels. Yeah,
I think that's a good point. And I'm not surprised that Curry Underhill start because I thought they were absolutely awesome against Australia. I thought they were absolutely brilliant. But I'm glad to see Wilson back on the bench, I think. Ludlam was the right call for Australia, but Wilson's the right call for the All Blacks.
It's a different type of game, and Wilson is just he offers security. Would that be a fair comment? I guess he offers decent cover for Billy. Billy's not been having his best games recently. I mean, he's obviously an important part of this England side, but he's not the beast that he was before he was injured. Making huge ground every time he gets the ball in hand and really kind of leading England's pack in terms of dominance. I'm not sure that you replace him because he is an 80-minute player, but I guess he is injury prone, and they're probably thinking that if he was to go down and you were looking at either Curry, Underhill, or Ludlam to move to 8, then you're at a massive disadvantage against the All Blacks. So you need someone who can play 8 with confidence.
I've got a feeling Billy's going to have a big game. I think he's due a big game.
Mate, have you got a feeling that the England 23 are going to have a big game?
You have read my mind, my friend. You have read my mind. No, but Billy, we're saying that about Billy. Is that because he's not playing well, or is it because he's now such a danger man that he's marked differently? I wouldn't say he's not playing well. I just think he's not playing as well
as he has done for England in the past. He's still a vital player.
Oh, he's huge.
In this England team. But there was a time when you would say that he walks into the number 8 shirt for any team in the world. I'm not convinced that's necessarily the case anymore, or at the moment.
Yeah, possibly. But to get back to the original point, like you say, with Billy there, I think Wilson was the right call.
And to be fair, whenever Wilson hasn't been utilised as much as we might have thought he would have been, if we're looking at this 6 months ago, when he was awesome. And actually, when he has been used, he's been awesome. So, maybe he's. Do you think maybe he's going to have an absolute storm of a game?
Do you know what? I think he might. I've got a feeling.
You've got a feeling. Good.
I've got a feeling about that one.
Dan has a feeling. All right, look, we've gone through a lot of the teams, so let's actually just go through the remainder of it. Obviously, the front row, Vunipola, George, Sinclair. For
solid.
Me, that there's no question there. That's England's go-to front row, and they are world beaters. Marrow, obviously, in at number 4. Courtney Laws starts at 5 again. He did against Australia. George Cruz on the bench. I don't know if that's the call I would make.
I think I would have gone for that.
Do you?
I think I would have stuck with that. Cruz will come on at some point, and do you know what I've got a feeling might happen when he comes on?
I think we've all got a feeling, mate.
I think I've got a feeling that when Cruz comes on, he'll just do a job and have an okay game.
Oh, interesting.
No, I would have stuck with that.
Yeah. Was Laws as impactful against Australia as he has been in the past? I kind of think he's been selected there ahead of the other two because he offers kind of an aggression that's dominant tackles, safe tackles, but on the line and very dominant tackles. And I didn't see a lot of that, but then maybe I wasn't looking in the right places.
So I think you go for a Launchbury if you need somebody who carries a bit better. I think Launchbury carry is better than, if we're saying it's between Launchbury, Laws and Cruz. I think Launchbury's the best carrier out of them. But I don't think you need that in the forwards when you've got the likes of Billy, Mako, Sinclair, Atoje. So I don't think you need
Sinclair related to Carl Sinclair?
It's his distant cousin, actually.
Okay.
They're from slightly different areas of London, so they spell it slightly and pronounce it slightly differently.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah, it's the same person. But with that, I don't think you need Launchbury.
No.
So it's Cruz, Laws. Cruz is big, strong, powerful, calls the line out. But I thought Atoje called the line out really well the other day. And like you say, what Laws offers is that aggression of a tackle. And I think against New Zealand, that's great to have. That's probably more important. So, I
want to see it. I guess that's the key.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because obviously New Zealand have made a fairly significant change in bringing in Scott Barrett at 6.
I can't believe that. I can't believe
he's never started a game at 6. He's obviously a second row by choice, although he has played at 6, coming off the bench for them before. And obviously Sam Cane moved to the bench. Now, is this a sign that they're wanting to be more aggressive at the line out? Is it a sign that they want to attack England's line out by having that extra kind of, I guess, line out specialist in Scott Barrett? Or is it a sign that they're looking to defend their own one better because they're concerned about, well, do you know what I mean? Like, is this a positive? Because it's them reacting, it's normally other teams reacting to the All Blacks, making changes to compete with the All Blacks. And here's the All Blacks making a fairly unexpected change that looks a lot like they're reacting to what they think one of England's strengths might be.
I think the reason he's brought in is to try and disrupt the kamikaze kids.
Interesting.
And the breakdown.
But he's not a breakdown specialist. I mean,
No, but I think he's very good at clearing out. I don't think interrupting them necessarily by sort of jackling or anything. I think one of his major roles will be to get to a breakdown first and clear out one of those two. Because if you give those two time at the breakdown, they can be a nightmare. And I think New Zealand are wary of that.
I mean, if that's what they're doing, let's keep a close eye, because the breakdown clear out has become an area of contention with, and New Zealand in particular recently, getting pinged for dangerous clear outs. Going in with the shoulder to head. Of course, when you're clearing out, you are naturally attacking the head area. So that will be an interesting one to see how they cope with that. When you've got the likes of Sam Underhill, who doesn't care if you clear out his face. He's going to put it there and challenge you to try and do it, and not care when you rip half of it off. New Zealand are going to need to be careful, because I think either one of these sides can't afford to go a man down during this game. It's too critical. But yeah, so that's an interesting show. I mean, it's the only real kind of surprise shout on their side, and I guess we don't have any on ours other than the forward Farrell axis changing again. But yeah, Curry Underhill, it seems to be England's answer at the moment. It's become apparent, I think, that this is something that Eddie, at some point, whenever it was, decided this is what I'm going for, and England have almost adjusted their approach to make this work, and it seems to be doing a job.
Yeah. It seems to be working well. Okay, let's move on to the backs then. So we've got Youngs again. Now, this I think is a major point. Youngs against Aaron Smith. Aaron Smith is on fire. Youngs needs to have a big game.
Yes. But I think Aaron Smith is on fire no matter who you are. Even if you're Faf de Klerk, I think Aaron Smith is on fire.
Yeah.
So, that was always going to be a tough matchup. The flank, Curry and Underhill are going to need to have their wits about them to help deal with Smith. And Ben Youngs, as you say, he needs to have a good game. And we've seen some great games from him, but just not for a while. So, I want to see something big from him. Forward at 10.
Yeah, I think we've probably gone through
covered
this,
exactly. Johnny May's obviously fit. there were slight
great news.
concerns, but he's fit and firing. So obviously Johnny May, his first international try was against New Zealand with that wonder try.
Was that his first international try?
It was, yeah. I mean, we didn't win the game, but it was close.
That's a ridiculous try to score for your first try.
Lost by 3 points.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would highly recommend prior to this game, just dig it out. 2014. In fact, I think you can just Google Johnny May versus the All Blacks, and one of the first results is that try, because he had no right to score it.
They massively had underestimated his pace. They didn't realise how quick he was.
But they
do realise that now. But
that doesn't change the fact that pace is there. It exists. So he will be one to watch. It'd be great to see him score another wonder try, because it's been a little while.
Yeah, and Watson on the other wing.
Yeah.
Can you remember the time Watson got the ball in a reasonable position where he didn't beat the first man, or at least make a half break against the first man?
Has it ever happened?
I'm not sure it has. He always does that. Watson, he was a bit quiet against Australia because he didn't have a huge amount of ball. But when he gets the ball, my God, that guy is good.
I think one of the great things about Anthony Watson is what he's able to do in from a standing start. Because it's one thing to be a world class quickie. When you get the ball on the perfect pass that kind of lands it at in your hands while you're at full pace, and away you go on the outside. But Anthony Watson can pick up a fairly ropey ball and then just create something magic from it. And as you say, whether it's a case of beating multiple men and running in tries in the corner, or whether it's just a case of him being able to hold on to the ball and make a few yards, but ultimately retain it. I think that's the key, isn't it? And it was something that Mike Brown in his heyday was so good at. Was no matter what happened, he always seemed to manage to stay on his feet long enough for support to arrive, and the ball got recycled. Whereas quite often with Elliot Daly, you see him make a break, and immediately you start worrying: is support going to be with him? And I think as well with a lot of the really quick players, when they make breaks, you do worry that if the rest of the team can't keep up, that if the tackle gets made, it's going to get turned over.
Are we worried based on last week? Daly got done a couple of times for pace. Now the All Blacks have a player at their 15 who is not slow himself. So if Beauden Barrett, are they going to target Daly for that, do we think? Because he got caught out a couple of times last week.
George Bridge is their real pace man, isn't he?
Well,
Beauden Barrett obviously has a bit of gas as well. Are they going to target? I think they're going to target him with all sorts. I think they're going to target him with the high ball.
I think he's pretty solid under that.
I still feel like it's 50-50.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we will see. And we know Anthony Watson, given time, can do a job there as well. But and even like kick chase, and how often has it been? It's one thing when I'm not talking about the high ball when they kick long and he's just got to catch it and then either kick it back or counter attack. I'm talking about when it's an attacking kick, so he's defending it and he's got to take the ball while under pressure. And I've seen too many failed attempts from him in those scenarios where Anthony Watson, much like Mike Brown back in the day, is usually pretty solid in those situations. So that's one area that I would imagine that they will look to target. With their kicking game, if he gets it right, then he can be a game changer. But if he gets it wrong, it could be costly. And I don't. I guess Watson can move to fullback if necessary. I'd be tempted to have Watson at fullback and Daly on the wing. I'm not suggesting that Elliot Daly shouldn't be involved, but that's my one concern. It has been from the beginning, but I just really hope that he can prove us wrong on Saturday.
Yeah, I've got a feeling. Don't worry, we're safe.
All is well in the world of rugby. Dan has a feeling. That's good to know, mate. Finally, obviously, Farrell and Manu make up the 12-13 channel. Manu has got to be relishing this. There is a lot of pressure on him, but I feel like he's the kind of guy who just doesn't care about the pressure. He's just like, give me the ball. And I think, ignore the threat that is Manu Tuilagi at your peril, because there's just something about him. I don't care who you're playing against. I mean, he's as close as England's ever had to a Jonah Lomu. Lomu!
Yeah, he is definitely a Lomu. He's definitely as close to that. Do we think that we're going to have runners off Farrell at 12 then, because the New Zealand defence are going to be so worried about Tuilagi, where you've got, we saw it with the sink against Australia when he comes in the midfield and cuts that line. Do we think England are going to target that and have runners of 12?
Because... Yeah, I think the Sinclair thing, it's not like it was open play and he found himself in the right position. I think it was planned. So I imagine that they'll be looking to do the same thing. And I definitely think, I wouldn't go as far as to say that that New Zealand are going to be busy worrying about Manu. I think they'll back themselves. I mean, who they've got? Jack Goodhue is obviously looking pretty useful, and that mullet is doing wonders for the All Blacks.
The power mullet. Yeah.
He's a real strong all rounder. I think they'll back him to be able to make his tackles. But I think Manu will back himself to break them. So it'll be an interesting lineup. Will they commit 2 players to Manu? I don't know, because that's the danger, isn't it? When you do commit 2 men on Manu, you've got 2 players in Ford and Farrell who can spot that and use Manu as a dummy runner and create overlaps. And when you've got a Watson or a May outside, a Daly outside, a Farrell if it's Ford making the call, that's a concern. So I think New Zealand will be going into the game backing themselves to handle Manu. I think it's up to Manu to make sure that they regret that decision.
We need to, I agree with that. What we need to do with you're looking at the Kiwi backs, we need to try and stop Aaron Smith getting quick ball. Which is why I think Curry-Underhill is such a key combination, and they've been playing so well. But
I think as is the case with England rugby at the moment, the forwards have got a massive job to do to slow down opposition ball, to control the tempo of the game, and then to allow England to play with quick ball when they need it, and for Ben Youngs not to take 3 steps before he passes the ball.
Yes, that'd be good.
Or bring Willie Hines on, whichever. But I think. It'll be a really interesting game, and I think it'll be very interesting to see what tactics the 2 sides go for. Looking at the bench, you might argue that New Zealand have the stronger bench, but I don't. But if you're looking player for player, man for man, but I don't know. I feel like when you look at how they slot into the team,
New Zealand have a stronger bench.
They do, but man for man. But in terms of the impact they have on their side, at the moment when they come on, I guess it all depends on how the game is going when those changes get made. Because do you want a Cowan, Dickey, Marler, Cole coming on if Vunipola, George and Sinclair are absolutely bossing it? Yeah,
well, exactly. I think my thought, England have a stronger starting 15, New Zealand have a stronger bench.
Yeah, I guess if you're looking at finishers and the impact they're going to have on the game, actually you're probably, apart from try machine Karen Dickey, although he didn't get his against Australia.
He's shit.
Slade and Joseph are your 2 attacking threats. I think Jonathan Joseph is the one that has the potential to maybe change things, mix things up a bit. It'll be an interesting one. I think our starting 15, is stronger.
Yes, I agree.
And I think that last 20 minutes could be crucial. And for that reason, I think it's absolutely key that England get off to a flyer and then build on that lead. And, Owen Farrell has shown that, the mindset is there. For how long have we been saying, take your points. That's clearly now been ingrained. And as we saw against Australia, when you do that, you just continually build the pressure to the point where it becomes difficult. And we know that New Zealand don't like playing on the back foot. When England have been victorious in the past, albeit rarely, against New Zealand, it's been because they've got off to a flyer and they've put them under huge pressure. And once the pressure, they're just not used to it because they're such a dominant side that they just don't play a lot of rugby where they're behind.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. With Mitchell in defence coach, hopefully that will help. Hopefully he'll be able to help us, unlock the key to sort of just keeping New Zealand a bit quieter. Because if you give New Zealand time to play, they are so dangerous.
I mean, okay, so a couple of things I thought were interesting. So I was looking back at the last time England beat New Zealand. Farrell was at 10.
Yeah.
Tuilagi at 13.
Yeah.
JJ was on the bench.
Okay.
Ben Youngs was starting 9. Dan Cole was the only person in the forwards who started, and obviously he's now on the bench. Mako and Courtney were both came on from the bench. So what's that? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 England players involved in the 23 on Saturday were involved in that victory. And on the reverse, you had Retallick and Whitelock both starting, so that hasn't changed. So you could argue, the experience will be beneficial, but equally, England got the better of that lock partnership back then. Reid and Smith both started as well, and Dane Coles was on the bench. So England have more players in this 23 than New Zealand, who were involved in that 38-21 victory on the 1st of December 2012. Can't believe we're talking about 2012.
Yeah.
So that's it. Just interesting. Yeah, bit of info for you. But yeah, that was the last time England beat New Zealand. But I wanted to, lots of people will be saying, the New Zealand are unstoppable. Just look at the records. England haven't won since 2012. And yeah, absolutely true. But I just want to look at the results for a minute. So we've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, including that victory in 2012. In 2013, New Zealand won by 8.
Mm-hmm.
We in 2014 we toured down there. The first 2 games where the tour was obviously on the line. New Zealand won.
Didn't we have a sort of almost second team because of a final?
Because of the final.
Yeah, because of the Premiership final.
I don't know. I didn't look into that. But more importantly, England lost, but by 5 points.
Yeah.
In the second test, they lost by 1.
Yeah.
The third test, obviously, it was all over. So it was a big of it. New Zealand won by 23, but I'm drawing a line through that one because the series was lost.
Because it doesn't suit our narrative.
Yeah, exactly. In 2014, England lost by 3, and in 2018, England lost by 1.
They're very close. They're very close. But I think this is the best England team.
Well, that's
in
my
all
point.
those years,
so I think anyone who's freaking out about England's chances because they think that New Zealand are just too dominant and can't be beaten and all the rest of it, just have a little look back. Like, yes, we lost, and obviously rugby is about winning, and that's the most important thing. And you could argue New Zealand knew what to do, but England were chasing most of these games, and they were close. And when a game is that close, it can go either way. So I think. Do not underestimate this England side at your peril.
Yeah.
Because these sides are a lot closer than the results would suggest. A decision the other way. I mean, look, 2 games they won by 1 point.
It's close. But I that will all count for nothing come Saturday. But it is. Well, no, actually, will it count for nothing?
I don't think it counts for nothing. It's not going to impact the game on Saturday, but it's more about just highlighting that New Zealand have this outrageous record in terms of their win percentage against other teams in general. But we're talking about England, so against England. But just look at how close those games have been, bar that one. Where it was a 23-point margin, but it was the 3rd game in a 3-game series, and England had already lost the series, so. A slightly different proposition there. So you take that one out of the equation, and the last 4 outside of that, two of them New Zealand won by a point. One of them they won by 3 points. One of them they won by 5 points. These are small margins that are that could easily go the other way. England need to have just the belief in themselves. And they need to stick to their game plan. I think we talked at the beginning, Dan. You asked me, would I rather have a comfortable win or an absolute belter of a game where we win by next to nothing? I think what this tells me is we're set up for a belter of a game.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be a comfortable win for whoever ends up being victorious. By which I mean for England.
England, of course.
So yeah, roll on Saturday. Now, we have one final review / email that I wanted to read out because it leads on to the last part of this episode, which I think is really interesting. So this is from Paul. Is it from Paul? Yes. Paul Giles has emailed us. He says, "Hi guys, I found the pod when I first got into podcasts just over a year ago and have been an avid listener ever since. To my mind, you can't beat some rose-tinted bias with some interesting debates and back and forth banter. I often find myself inadvertently joining in the conversation, even if only talking to a recording. I would definitely give the pod 5 stars and hope that this union of Andy and Dan continues after the World Cup and on to future tournaments, of which I'm sure England will win them all. Obviously very excited about the semi-final. The number 1 team in the world get the chance to take on New Zealand. Come on, I know you're thinking it too. We are all surely in for a great game from the 2 strongest sides in this World Cup. I was reading something the other day from Rugby Past that compiled a composite 15 from the 2 teams and thought it might make quite a good talking point, so I've included the link below, which I've obviously checked out. My question to you is, if you had to pick a composite 15, who would you choose from each side and why? All in all, love what I hear on a weekly basis. Great content, great banter, and some great England analysis. Keep up the good work, and come on, England."
Excellent. A like-minded fella again. Excellent.
Indeed. So, Dan.
Yes.
Let's pick our England All Blacks.
Well, I've done mine. But what I've done, because you mentioned pick a team, I've picked a 15, as Paul asked. But I've only picked based upon the 2 starting 15s. I haven't picked from the wider.
That's. I mean, to be honest, how many people are likely to be in the running outside of the starting 15s? So let's go. We'll go through and let's see what we come up with.
Okay, so my front row, I've gone All England: Mako, George, and Sinclair. Weirdly enough, I might have gone if Dane Coles was starting. I think at the moment I probably would have gone Coles ahead of George. Because although Jamie George has been solid, great, I think I've seen him play better before. I don't mean he's playing badly, but for now I've gone Mako, George, Singh.
So I completely agree with you. I think the England front row gets the nod, and actually I think Dane Coles has been a little bit out of form. If anything, I would say Cody Taylor was the bigger threat, and yet I just don't think he's as good as Jamie George. I think Jamie George is the best line-out thrower in World Rugby at the moment, and I just think that between the three of them, the Kiwis have a great front row, but they're more traditional, which is weird because actually they probably led the way in kind of innovative front row forwards. But I think this front row of Mako, Jamie George, and Carl Sinclair is such a unique attacking front row. I just think you need that in a combined 15, and so for me, I completely agree. I think that is the England All Blacks front row.
I'm going to make this call now. I say Mako's the best loose head in the world, and Sinclair's the best tight head in the world.
Good. I hope you researched that.
Oh God, I hope I've got them on the right side. I'm pretty sure I have, but I think they're the best. Mako, I've always thought, and Sinclair, I was trying to think, is there anyone better? And actually, it was listening, and Danny Kerr said it on the thing, saying he thinks he's the best tight head in the world. I'm sure it's tight head, but ignoring that, let's go on. But he said it, and I thought about that, and I was like, I can't think of anyone who better.
Do you know, it's they may not be the most traditional front row, and it's one of the reasons why when you've got the likes of Dan Cole and Joe Marler to come on to shore up the scrum, sometimes that's a good thing. Carl Sinclair was under a bit of pressure in the scrum. They may not be the best scrummagers, but I think when you're looking at an 80-minute game, yes, of course, if they're getting dominated in the scrum and you're losing the scrums, that's a problem. But I think the reward is worth the risk, because I think what they offer in open play as ball players is super valuable. And when you're creating an England All Blacks 15, you have such a strong team anyway that I think you've got to go with your attacking threats, and that is the most attacking front row. But that's an interesting one, isn't it? So we're kind of saying that England in the front row.
Yeah, absolutely. Who have you gone in the row?
I doubt there'll be any debate, but Brodie Retallick is probably one of the best players in the world, has to get one of those spots. And I think Marrow is the other one.
Yeah, I've done the same with Retallick and AJ. I think that's fairly...
I think Marrow is better than Sam Whitelock.
There. Yeah.
I think Marrow is the only England lock that's in with a shout as a result, and Brodie Retallick you can't ignore either. So, I mean, that's a hell of a second row, isn't it?
God, could you imagine? Brodie Retallick, ugliest man in World Rugby, but probably the best player in World Rugby at the moment.
I mean, he could be a Bond villain.
He definitely could be a Bond villain. He is a Bond villain.
He is a Bond villain.
Just for looking like that, he's a Bond villain.
The back row is an interesting one.
Okay, so, I know what I've gone.
So first of all, for New Zealand, at 6, Ardie Surveyor.
Yep, same.
He's way too aggressive not to be included.
He's too hard not to be in there. Yeah.
It's like Manu, but a flanker.
If he had a real first name as well, I'd prefer him even more than I do.
Instead of Ardie.
Yeah, that's just not a name. Please give us...
It's not an English name, Dan.
Well, it's not a name. But Surveyor at 6.
It's his name, yeah. So Ardie Surveyor at 6. But that then leaves us with the debate of, do you go Tom Curry, Sam Underhill, Sam Cane? Scott Barrett, potentially, but I wouldn't.
Not Scott Barrett. I counted out Sam Cane because he wasn't starting. But even if you count him in...
I still think you've got to go with one of the Kamikaze twins. And this is the interesting one. Do you go Tom Curry over Sam Underhill?
Just about. They can flip-flop, and both have been brilliant. Curry...
For me, either one of them, I'm happy. I think I agree with you, but Sam Underhill makes the bench, even though we're not officially doing the bench, although we might as well, because actually we can easily just say, well, the front row is just... The bench is the New Zealand front row.
Did you go Curry then? Did you?
I think I did. I mean, I had them both there, but Curry's the first name on the team sheet. So yeah, I'm going Curry at 7, but Underhill on the bench.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, Billy misses out.
Have you gone Kieran Reid?
I've gone Kieran Reid, and he's the captain.
So I've got Billy. I've got Kieran Reid is world class and it's absolute quality. I think Billy's just a little bit more world class and a little bit more quality.
Interesting. Our first falling out.
All right, I don't think we need to fall out over it.
For me, Billy's not at his best. You know, Billy a year ago, 18 months ago, sure. I think he, as I said earlier in the episode, I think he would walk into any team. But I think Kieran Reid, what he brings, both in his abilities but also his leadership, I think that's something that this team is lacking. Even though I'm including Owen Farrell in the team, I think Kieran Reid for me is the 8 and the captain. But anyway, we can come back to that. Sam Cane, obviously, as you say, dropped for Scott Barrett.
No. We're not coming back to that. Billy gets the nod.
Okay. In your team, that's fine. In my team, he doesn't. We're allowed to have different teams now. They're fairly similar. But yeah, Scott Barrett, as I said earlier, never started in the back row. Normally a lock. So he's obviously not in the shout. And the fact that Sam Cane's been dropped to the bench for him, he's out of the running. So the point is it's Kieran Reid at 8. 9 has to be Aaron Smith.
Best scrum half in the world is Aaron Smith. End of conversation.
And actually, I'd probably put TJ Perinara on the bench.
That try he scored. I can't remember who was that try against that he scored.
It was against who was it against? It was their last game, wasn't it?
Whoever it was.
It was Italy.
No, they didn't play Italy.
No, that got cancelled, didn't it? So it must have been the one before that, or was it their quarter-final? No, it wasn't the quarter-final.
No. But
so it's going back a while. But yeah, that try was outrageous. It was against Namibia.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think the thing, it was outrageous, and that's one of the it's tries like that have got everyone, pissing their pants about how good the All Blacks are. But when you watch that game, I mean, Namibia didn't offer in any way an attacking defence, and it was a great finish. Don't get me wrong, but the space was there, and yeah, it needed a bit of genius work. We'll ignore that. It needed a bit of genius work in order to be finished off, and yeah, TJ Perinara, what a finish it was, but. For me, he makes the bench. So actually, they have the starting and finishing 9s.
Who's calling in the background? Is that the cop dot? Or?
No, I work from home, Dan. It's my job. I'm ignoring my job for this pod.
I thought your job was being a cocktail.
That could have been big business already. One of the two.
Already, yeah.
One of the two. Could have been British Airways calling to offer me loads of money.
Okay, fair enough.
Probably wasn't. Anyway, let's move along. So at 10, and this is an interesting one because obviously he's not even playing there for England, but I'm going Owen Farrell.
Yeah, I've got Owen Farrell. I've got Owen Farrell at 10 and captain.
The main reason, he's vice-captain for me and the kicker, but anyway, the main reason is because you've got to include him.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's room for him in the centres.
There's not in the centres. I think we've gone the same centres.
Probably. So the wings?
I've gone England wings, May Watson.
So have I. I mean, I just don't think that. I don't think there's any question that they're the form wingers at the moment. I mean, for me, Anthony Watson versus Sevu Reece. I go Watson just because of really for the things we discussed earlier in the episode, his ability, whether it's with good attacking ball, perfect lines and everything else, and his gas, or whether it's his ability to create something from nothing. I think he gets the nod. And Johnny May against George Bridge. I mean, George Bridge is probably their answer to Johnny May, but there's only one Johnny May.
Yeah,
and just for that try that he scored against them, he gets the nod. So May Watson, and we might as well just get it out of the way. Obviously, Bowden Barrett's 15.
Bowden Barrett at 15, yeah. So actually, so far, we're going to come to the centres. We've gone exactly the same team, except at 8, you've gone Kieran, I've gone Billy. So basically, the only difference so far is I'm back in England, you're back in New Zealand. Okay. Interesting. Centres. Do you want me to go?
If you like.
I've gone 12 Goodhue, 13 Manu. But I'm happy to change that round. I'm happy to have Manu at 12 and Goodhue at 13.
I've gone for the 2 as well. And I've actually done Manu at 12, Goodhue at 13.
Which with hindsight, actually may be a better way round. I'm happy with your version.
Yeah, I mean, Manu can't be left out. He's a destructive ball carrier. Yeah. There is that question mark about whether he's better at 13, but I think he's proven that he can play either one. Can Goodhue play at 12?
I think Goodhue play at 12.
I mean, he's an all-rounder. I think this is the reason why Goodhue, I think, gets the nod over an England alternative in Slade or JJ, for example. I just think his all-round game is better, and he's got the mullet.
Yeah, mine was purely mullet-based.
Yeah, purely mullet-driven. So, literally the only thing we've done differently is our number 8.
Yeah, I've gone for England, you've gone for New Zealand.
And despite my going for New Zealand, just to try and even things out as much as I possibly can, England get 9 out of 6. And in your case, 9 versus 6. In your case, 10 versus 5.
Yeah.
That for me is quite telling. And I know that we're obviously a biased pod, and I'm sure that if there are Kiwi fans listening, they would disagree with a lot of what we've said. But I don't feel like we've made outrageous calls in who we've selected, that are just totally unfounded.
No, I agree.
And therefore, that gives me a lot of positive energy going into Saturday. The fact that actually 2/3 of this of a team combined, these two together, is in England. Is England? That speaks volumes.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. We're not being ridiculous. Yes, we probably are a bit more biased. Yes, we see a lot more of England players, but I don't think we've gone anywhere where it's just somebody's going to turn around and say that's absolutely ridiculous.
No. Someone will now comment saying that's absolutely ridiculous, but I mean the bottom line is I want to see this team play now.
Oh God, that would be so good, wouldn't it? That's close to a universe 15.
We maybe we'll do that because we won't be able to let go straight after the World Cup, and we still need to decide what we're going to do going forwards. And it may be that we do a little cameo. We might just come back for big tournaments, but we'll cross that bridge once England have won the World Cup. But it would be quite good to do a World 15. We
can maybe do a World Cup 15. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. But No, that was great. I quite enjoyed doing that as well.
It was good. Guys, get in touch. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you would pick different players and in what positions. Remember, the rules are that they need to be in the starting 15 for their respective sides for this Saturday. And yeah, let us know how your 15 lines up. Don't bother writing in if you're just going to name the New Zealand side.
Yeah, let us know before Saturday as well, because then we can maybe cover it in our pre.
Yeah, and actually, we've had a few comments from people saying that there's no point spending too much time discussing the game because actually everyone's already seen the game by the time they watch it, which is a fair point. So if we can, talk about some of these other things, that would be quite cool. So yeah, if you've listened, if you've heard what we've said, and you have a difference of opinion, get in touch at England Rugby Pod on social media, englandrugbypod@gmail.com on email, and let us know what your England All Blacks side would look like. We're just picking a 15, but I know some Kenos. We've got some Kenos out there that might do a full 23. Because it would be fascinating to see where your opinions differ. Dan, any parting words ahead of the big game on Saturday?
In the word, no, I don't. I was going to try and think of something there, but nothing came to mind, and I would have just said something so weird. So,
so unlike you.
I know.
Well, on that note then, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, keep up the good work. We will obviously be back early doors on Saturday. Massive game for England. Semi-finals, 9 a.m. kickoff. So slightly later start, but still early. Huge. And with any luck, the next time you hear from us, we will be celebrating a famous victory and looking ahead to the World Cup final. We will catch you then.